Welcome back to the Junkman. Everybody, it's me, the Junkman, coming back at you to tell you about another way we could have got our Star Wars fix back during the original run of Star Wars. It was really hard to get Star Wars stuff. You had the comics, you had to wait about a month each time to get those. You had the movies, you had to wait 3 years. But if you needed that Star Wars fix, you could get it daily. That's right, you could have got it daily. Growing up as a kid in the 80s, we wake up on Saturday to watch cartoons. But what did we do on Sundays? There wasn't many cartoons to watch, so we'd get the Sunday newspaper, because in those would be color funny pages or comic strips. Usually the lead page would be Peanuts, with other ones on the inside. And if you had the newspaper from Los Angeles Times Syndicate and Watertown Daily Times, you were lucky, because you've got the Star Wars comic strip. To avoid the cliffhanger of The Empire Strikes Back, the stories were set between Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back. Except when they did turn the Han Solo story, Stars In novel, into a comic strip form. But these comics didn't only appear on the Sunday color comic, they would also appear as black and white comic strips between Monday and Friday. Most of us didn't care about those. We wanted to see the color ones on Sunday. Well, the comic strip ran between 1979 and 1984. It was first written by Russ Manning, who sadly passed away in 1981 due to cancer. Other writers would include Arch Goodwin, who wrote for the Marvel Star Wars comics, Steve Gerber, and Darren R. Christian. The artist would be, of course, Russ Manning. Alfredo Alcala would do a few of the comic strips when Russ Manning went down due to illness. Other artists include Dave Stevens, Rick Holberg, and Al Williamson. Overall, there would be 27 different stories throughout these comic book series. A lot of Star Wars fans don't even know about these comic strips. And although they've been releasing their own books, still they've kind of gone unknown. In 1991, Russ Crockman produced a 3-volume hardcover box set of all the Goodwin and Williamson Star Wars comic strips that ran between 1981 and 1984. Those were limited to 2,500 copies. In 1994, Russ Manning's comic strip would be put into a comic book form in the classic Star Wars The Early Adventures. That would include both the daily and colored Sunday strips. In 2017, you could have picked up Star Wars The Collector's Classic Newspaper Comics Volume 1, with Volume 2 and Volume 3 in the following year. A little fun fact in these comic strips was the first appearance of Admiral Akbar. Now, growing up, I didn't really know about these, but I did have a kid at my school one time who told me that he saw Star Wars in the comic strips when he was on vacation and was telling me about it, and I thought he was a liar, and I didn't believe him back in the 80s, and I didn't believe him until the 90s. By then, I didn't know him anymore, but I saw in the 90s that these came out, and I was like, whoa, maybe he did see this. Maybe he went to California or something for vacation. But I tell you, as a kid, if these were in my comics, or comic strips, funny papers, what we call them, I don't know, we call them funny papers. Maybe it's just a southern things. We call them funny papers. If we knew that was in there, I would have bought every issue, because I would always, I would buy the Sunday ones anyway. Well, I wouldn't buy, my parents would, and I would grab the Sunday ones so I could read the comics. I know, it started off with Peanuts. Peanuts was kind of boring to me, never liked Peanuts. I would flip to the second page. I got to get to that Beely Bailey. I got to see what he gets into, or that Hocus Focus. Remember that? Where you had to get 2 pictures. It was like 2 pictures, and you had to guess what was wrong with each one. And then the comics during the week, those black and white ones, that was always more serious. I never liked those. I never liked my serious comic books, comic strips. My grandma would read them for me. She would just save all the old ones. She would keep up with it. Like one was a doctor, or I don't know who it was. They looked pretty boring. To me, I needed them more silly, but I tell you, there wasn't nothing worse than Hazel. Remember Hazel? Not the television show. I'm talking about the comic strip. It would just be one of those one-panel comics. I never thought it was funny. Now, The Far Side. I love The Far Side. Did you? I love The Far Side. Family Circus. Was that the other one? With Dennis the Menace was in it, maybe? Was Dennis the Menace in Family Circus? Was that 2 different things? I guess that's 2 different things. Never really got that either, but Far Side did make me laugh. Well, this is a look at the comic strips. I wasn't sure how many people knew about this, how popular it was. Like I said, I don't really hear people talk about it, and I like to find some obscure stuff to make you say, hey, I didn't know about that, or hey, I forgot about that. Maybe you sat on a Sunday or whatever, and you couldn't wait to get the new newspaper so you could read this. Do they even make comic strips? Do they appear in newspapers anymore? Do they even make newspapers anymore? It just seems like a bygone era, but anyway, again, I just want to talk about this. I know it's kind of a short video, but I thought it would be kind of fun to take a look at some of these. So, as always, if you like my content, subscribe to the channel. We'll talk again soon.
Hey, Junkman channel popping though.
Thank you, sir, for that unsolicited testimony.